Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of The Rundown. I'm Sunny Galt. I'm a messenger with United Network News, which we refer to as UNN, and we are the official news channel for CARE, the Center for Amity and Restoration of Earth. And we are here to bring you the real news. I know you don't get a lot of that, whether it's through mainstream or alternative media, but we are different. We have a newscast that is released online through our distribution platform at unitednetwork.tv, and our newscast comes out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And if you want some more information on that and learn how you can become a member and get access to all of our awesome content, please go to unitednetwork.tv. So that is behind a paywall, and that's part of the reason that we do this podcast, because the information that we're giving is crucial to every human being on this planet. We do have to keep the lights on. We do have to pay people to do the work that they're doing, which is why it's currently behind a paywall. But we do this podcast because we still need to get the word out, okay? So we don't give you everything that we cover in the newscast, but I try to, through this podcast, to give you some of the highlights. And that includes local stories, which are told through our field messengers. We talk about the new Earth and where our planet is going and how things are changing, and also what humanity's role is in all of that, which, by the way, just a little sneak peek, it's awesome. The things that we're going to be able to do, it's just incredible. It's a whole new world, seriously. We talk about regional stories, like what's impacting the planet right now, what are people dealing with in different countries around the world, and then we have what we call our World Situation Report, and Kimberly Gogan from the Office of the Guardian is part of that. She comes on the show and she gives us usually mind-blowing updates of stuff that you will not find anywhere else, okay? So I try to take little snippets of all of this, put it in this podcast so you have an idea of what you may have missed, okay? And you may be wondering, how do you guys have access to this content? Well, like I said, it's very important to us that we bring you what's real, because most media outlets out there, whether it's intentional or not, are just going to give you narrative, okay? Usually things are passed down, 3-letter agencies and things like that are feeding a narrative, and it doesn't really matter if you're part of the mainstream or the alternative media. See, a lot of us, we realize something's wrong in mainstream, so we'll kind of veer off. And honestly, I did the exact same thing a few years ago as part of my waking up process. I was like, mainstream media, bad. Let's go, on Rumble and see what people are talking about. But that's been infiltrated as well. And despite the perhaps pure intentions that a host or somebody has that is hosting a channel on these different sites, they're still getting information that's flawed, okay? We don't have that. And that is because we have access through Kim to the highest security clearance on this planet. And we know exactly what's going on. The technology would absolutely blow your mind. So Kim manages what is called the Alpha system, and it can do some really cool things. We're not going to get into a lot of that. You may hear us talk about that in various newscasts and podcasts and things like that. But let's just say it's pretty neat. Okay? It works and runs on source energy, source meaning God, the creator of all things, and creator of life, right? And you don't have to plug it in. This is pure quantum, and even on a different level than quantum. The word quantum gets thrown around a lot, and it means absolutely nothing. The people that have caused a lot of damage on this planet, if you hear them say things like quantum this, quantum that, it's not real quantum, sorry, but what we have is truly unique. And we are on the light side, we are on God's side, and we are living in an incredible time period right now. And so if you're just waking up to all of this, like, hold on, buckle up. We've got some really good information to share with you guys today. And, some of the stuff I say is going to be surprising, especially if you haven't, watched our newscast before. You may kind of think that you are listening to something that's a combination of some stuff you've probably heard preach from some sort of pulpit or church or synagogue or something like that, combined with maybe a sci-fi series that you may have watched on Netflix a couple years back. I mean, it is incredible, the stuff that's happening. And sometimes it's really hard for us to wrap our heads around this because humanity has been left in the dark for so long. But I encourage you guys to stick with us. Even if some stuff you just can't make sense of it, it's okay. Just kind of put it on the back burner. It'll come to you when it's supposed to come to you. I do encourage everybody to do their own research because that's how we ended up in this crazy situation we're in now with these people that are trying to kill us and hand us over to these crazy alien people. It's absolutely insane because we let it get insane. So don't do that. Stop believing people just because they have some sort of platform. You need to run with your own intuition and use your discernment. I talk about discernment a lot. It is your built-in lie detector, and you have to start using it. Humanity has always had it, but we've just doubted ourselves. And honestly, that was built into society, so I'm not going to blame everybody for that. I was in that camp for a long time as well. But the more you practice discernment and you trust yourself and you trust that inner voice within you, it's going to lead you on the correct path in the right direction. So trust it, right? All right, so here is the rundown for Wednesday, December 20th, 2023. All right, let's give some credit to our amazing field messengers. So these are everyday people like you that are reporting on things that are happening in their community. And some things are more newsworthy, and then there's some things that are more community-based. And really, we're just sharing who we are as humanity. We have to get to know each other again. And we believe the best way to do that is through you guys, is through you sharing your own personal experiences. So we've got 3 different stories that I want to share with you today. The first one comes from Erin in Switzerland, and she tells the story of Martina Schiffer. Schiffer? I think it's Schiffer. We're going to go with Schiffer. And I believe Martina's also in Switzerland. And a while back, Martina bought this old restaurant, and over the years, she has transformed this into a healing center. And it's quite amazing. You guys really need to watch this story because Martina has never been to art school. You know how some people just have a gift, just a crazy, insane gift, and they've never been taught anything. I mean, that's truly a source gift, right? But she has become very successful, not just in art, but she also does healing sessions and different paintings for people and different workshops and how to do this. And it all kind of boils down, her artwork boils down to what's called mandalas, which, I've heard that term in different ways, but this is like I said, you really need to see the story, but I'm going to try to do some justice to this. But it almost looks like sacred geometry. If you've seen the different designs for sacred geometry. And the way that Martina explains it is that she is tapping into a client's pure soul essence. And that mandala is expressing the potential of that person. So somehow she's able to translate that visually and fully admits that she's tapping into a different power, into source, to be able to pull this out. And it's just incredible. I mean, her skill set, I was laughing with some of the people, the production team, because I was like, I have trouble, hanging pictures and making sure. I literally just did this the other day. And one picture is a little bit higher than the other when I wanted them to be even. This woman, everything is so symmetrical, and she does not have any kind of templates that she works from. She starts with the center of the picture and works outward, and it's just mind-blowing. So if you have a chance, be sure to check that out. And if you can even support her, because her work's absolutely incredible, please do so. Our next story is from Mary in eastern Uganda, and she does a story on someone she knows, I believe a friend of hers, who was impacted by the lockdowns, school-wise, the lockdowns that took place in Uganda for the quote-unquote pandemic. And Brittany is her friend, and she's sitting alongside Brittany. They're both young girls, by the way. And Brittany tells us her personal experience, which was quite devastating to her because when everything got shut down, if you didn't have the proper electronics, you really could not keep up with your schoolwork. And by electronics, I'm talking about computers, laptops, phones, tablets. If you didn't have anything like this, how were you going to stay in touch? How were you going to submit your work and all that kind of stuff? And so Brittany says she just felt so ashamed because when it was time to kind of, go back to school, she was essentially in the wrong grade, if you want to look at it that way. The kids that were younger, she's now kind of in their grade because they had access to some of this electronic equipment that she didn't have access to. And the people that were in her grade are now ahead of her. And it's so sad, right? And we know that this has happened in so many different ways. Like I think about here in the US, and it's probably this way in other Western countries. And that is everyone kind of had access to the same technology, right? So we don't really see a lot of people, getting separated from their grade levels and things like that. But what we don't really realize is that the whole grade is behind, right? And in some of these other countries, that distinction is more well known. You can see it. And so obviously we want to thank Brittany for sharing her story. I'm sure it's a story that a lot of people have felt. And our final story, we actually have 3 stories today for our Field Messenger reports. A lot of times it's only 2. This is a fun story, and it comes from our Field Messenger, Rick, who is out of Phoenix, Arizona. Rick and his wife every year dress up like Santa and Mrs. Claus, and they took us on a little trip with them. So they go out to different senior citizen homes, and I believe Rick said he and his wife were going to visit over 300 seniors this holiday season. And they bring them joy, they give them a Christmas gift. And, he just talks about playing Santa. Now, I know this could be a little controversial because of kind of our history and what Santa may represent and all this kind of stuff. But as we have talked about on the news before, what we need is love on this planet. And so many people associate Santa with love and giving and things like that. So we try not to drill down so much on, what was said and, you've got a Christmas tree, so you're pagan and all this kind of stuff. It is more about the feeling that it gives you. If you look at a Christmas tree and it brings you joy, that's that much joy and light we have on this planet. So Rick is spreading all this amazing joy by playing Santa. He is bringing love and joy to these older people that maybe a lot of people don't visit, right? So the video itself was all about Rick and his wife and, group that they went with going into these different rooms, visiting with senior citizens, singing, giving gifts. And it was just a lovely way to kind of bring in this holiday season. And now we have our New Earth segment. That's what we call it. And this is really to get you guys thinking about where our planet is headed and all the incredible opportunities that we have now to really create the home that we've always wanted. Because a lot of us woke up to the fact that, okay, this is not what I thought. The world is not operating in the way I thought it was supposed to operate. There is a lot of nefarious stuff going on, a lot of really horrible things that hurt humanity, hurt our environment, and hurt our planet. And when you wake up to that, it is quite jolting. But we now have this opportunity to rebuild. And so this portion of the news is to kind of get those wheels turning for you guys, because we truly need all hands on deck in order to make this happen. You are here for a reason now, and it is to help rebuild. So what is your role within all of this? And if you haven't figured it out yet, hopefully listening to some of these stories and these ideas of what other amazing individuals are doing on this planet will help you. So we kick things off with this interview I did with Kara Daniels, and I love Kara. She is amazing. She communicates with both plants and animals. And again, if you're new to our newscast, you may think that's a little woo-woo, but you can really do this. Okay, this is a very real thing, and you can tap into that. And so we are turning to Kara for information on how do we do this and what's the difference in communicating with these different, organic living species. And this interview, it's only about, I think, 6 or 7 minutes, focuses on communicating with domestic versus wild animals. Now, a lot of us think about, oh, yeah, I'd love to talk to my dog or my cat or whatever. And that's one thing because usually that's not a hostile kind of environment. kind, you love your pet, and your pet may be more willing to open up to you because of the relationship you've already established. However, when you are dealing with wild animals, that is not necessarily the case. And it was very interesting to get Kara's perspective on this because she has spoken with a lot of wild animals. And one of the things that she said that makes a lot of sense, but I kind of chuckled at, was the fact that a lot of times when you try to connect with a wild animal, they don't have a lot of time because they are out foraging. Their meal is not given to them in a cute little kitty cat bowl next to some water or milk or whatever. They have to go out and kill their food. They don't know where it's going to come from. And this is survival of the fittest. This is true nature, right? And so a lot of times, she said, when you're talking to wild animals, they are very short with you because they have to go do this other stuff. Or they may even say, hey, I don't have time to talk now, maybe later. Which I'm just picturing like, some sort of tiger animal saying this. So it's just different, right? So I encourage you guys to check this out. I also share the story. I won't go into a lot of depth right now, but I share the story of how I came to be the spider whisperer in my house. And I share specific examples of how when we see spiders and they're in areas of our house or whatever, I communicate with them and I get them to move like very, very quickly because, their web's going to be destroyed or whatever. So not that I ever wanted to be a spider whisperer. I wish I was like the cute little bunny whisperer or something like that. But apparently this is part of my gift. So if you want to hear more about that, again, check out that interview. A few more stories that we have as part of the New Earth. We talk about reindeer facts with, yes, we're doing this now because we've got the holidays and everything, but reindeer are actually very interesting creatures. And it kind of ties into us talking with, wild animals. So with reindeer, did you know, here's some interesting facts. Their hooves harden in the winter, and that is specifically to allow them to break ice for foraging. They're going out, like I said, wild animals. They got to go out, they got to get their food and things like that. So their bodies are actually changing throughout the year based on the season in order to be able to do that. Also, I also thought this was interesting. Their eyes change color due to seasonal light variations. Their skin has a warm undercoat, and there's also what they called hollow hair as part of the top layer. Apparently, that combination is excellent in freezing conditions because think about it, like they're in the Arctic. They're in Scandinavia and places like that. And, a lot of times they are helping the people of that area. It's kind of like how we might use horses or ox or something like that to pull heavy things. A lot of times reindeer are used. And, going back to that hollow hair they have, it actually allows them to float on the water, which is incredible because a lot of times when they're migrating, they have to essentially swim through the water to get to where they need to go. So there you go. Some fun facts about reindeer. If you ever see one, maybe you want to make some small talk with them. Now you have some stuff you can talk about. Who knows, right? Our next story is about an animal rescue center in Bristol, England, and they are raising funds through an innovative art program. So essentially, they're in need of money, and they got creative and came up with this art program, and it utilizes these dogs. I think it's specifically dogs that they were using for this. Right now, they said that there's rising inflation all over the place, and there is a surge in pet abandonments, which I know is, very sad. But they're getting an influx of animals and they have to take care of it. Yet, they also don't have a lot of money. So they came up with this idea for a Mutt Gala as opposed to the Met Gala. You guys heard of the Met Gala where all the celebrities get all dressed up and stuff? Well, this is the Mutt Gala where they auction off pet artwork. So you may be thinking, how in the world, are they going to get their little paws out and draw or something like that? That's not exactly how it works. They get out peanut butter and squeezy cheese, which, most animals like, at least dogs seem to like it pretty much. And they're kind of licking the canvas and stuff. It's very funny. We had some really funny video of this. And this not only is helping, the animal rescue center, but it's also helping the dogs. A lot of the times, the dogs are traumatized by the fact they were abandoned. And they were also in harsh living conditions. Maybe they were out on the street. Maybe they were in the snow, whatever that was. We don't really think of animals having what we might consider human characteristics, like feelings and stuff like that. But they absolutely do. And so this, again, not only serves as a way for the Animal Rescue Center to make some money, but it's therapy for the dogs. And our final story is from Grenada, which is a Caribbean nation, however you want to say it. And this is regarding the Molinaire Underwater Sculpture Park. I'm always fascinated with how creative people can get. So this is a life-size sculpture. It is modeled, they said, after local community members. So obviously there has to be some human-esque type figures down there. It's 10 feet below the surface, and everything is made from environmentally friendly materials. There is high-grade stainless steel, pH-neutral marine cement, and basically they're trying to ensure that there is not a bad impact on the local reef in the area. And it said the base includes holes and shelters for marine life. So they really have thought this through. But I mean, this is a beautiful sculpture that's underwater. We have these throughout the whole planet. So it's always neat to kind of see where these are at and catch a glimpse. Let's talk about our regional news. And a lot of you may know that when we talk about what's happening now on this planet and some of these headlines you may see elsewhere, we have decided not to talk about governments because governments don't really do anything besides mess things up. And honestly, they are puppets as well. The people that you see on TV, they are taking orders from someone else. And no, President Obama is not running Joe Biden. I mean, there is a whole system behind who runs whatever thing that's sitting in the White House called Joe Biden, okay? There's a whole team that manages that. And that is not the real Joe Biden, by the way. The real Joe Biden is not even alive anymore. So why would we talk about all that? It's just a bunch of nonsense, a bunch of lies. But what we think is important are stories that specifically impact the people. And we try to give you a well-rounded idea of what is happening around this planet. Because again, we have to get to know each other again. We have to start communicating again and not have these preconceived ideas of another place just because whatever, some report was done on it and the report was, served a purpose, of some sort of an agenda they wanted to promote. So I've got a few, 4 stories I'm going to share with you today just to give you an idea of what's happening around the world. There was a pretty big earthquake that took place in China. We actually have 2 stories that are related to quote unquote natural disasters. Just so you know, natural disasters aren't usually natural. And it used to be that the dark side would have a lot of resources to be able to pull this off. They no longer have access to things like HARP and things like that could really do some damage. So what you're seeing now, most of this, is remnants from things that were put in place hundreds of thousands of years ago. This is non-human technology. And so we're still seeing some stuff. In China, like I said, big earthquake, 6.2 on the Richter scale. It hit northwest Gansu. They are calling it the nation's deadliest earthquake in a decade. The latest numbers I saw were that it killed 118 people. There were more than 500 people injured. And it just caused a lot of damage, right? There was significant damage to homes, roads, power, communication lines. It even triggered a landslide in a location. So obviously not good news on that front. And we're working hard to mitigate these because, like I said, most of these are not natural. Also in Iceland, there was a volcano eruption. This is in southwestern Iceland. And it took place in town near their primary airport. And I believe that airport was evacuated last month due to the seismic activity. They could see some stuff brewing. And so they evacuated that. Many people over there are living in temporary accommodations. They have a really big tourist spot location called the Blue Lagoon Geothermal Spa. That was temporarily closed. So, it was serious when they cut back on a huge tourist destination. They said flights were not disrupted. I mean, obviously, if they shut down that one airport, those flights would have been disrupted. But for the most part, you can get in and out. The eruption is not expected to release large amounts of ash. So obviously, we'll be following this to see, how this impacts the people. But, a lot of people described it like visitors as like they were kind of watching a movie. And the video that we showed on the news was like this bright, bright red lava. Very interesting stuff. So that's what's happening in Iceland. All right, couple more stories. In Australia, there was a parliamentary committee, and they are calling for a 3-year phase out for online gambling ads. And they noticed and have brought to everyone else's attention that these ads are strategically placed alongside sports content. And you guys have probably seen this too. If you're online, anyone in your family does online gaming, gambling, kind of stuff like that, you may see these types of ads. And it's basically normalizing gambling and suggesting that it's a harmless activity, and they are specifically promoting this to a younger generation. It kind of reminds me of like the cigarette stuff, right? It's like, oh, it's so good. You look cool. It's harmless. And then, obviously we know better. So this ban, if it is implemented, would impact all media platforms. And what they said they wanted to do is give sports bodies as well as broadcasters time to find other revenue sources, because these type of gambling sites and the people that run their ad campaigns usually have a lot of money to spend. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. And our last story is about Mexico and the limits on food prices for different items. So Mexican food retailers are trying to curb inflation, and apparently they're trying to partner with the government a little bit. There was an agreement signed in 2022 to keep prices steady for 24 essential food items. And they didn't list out all of the food items, but you can probably imagine, some of the top essentials, right? And that's because they're facing the steepest inflation rates in 20 years. And so they're just trying to make sure people can get food. It seems kind of a simple thing, a no-brainer for the government. Hopefully there's not some weird agenda that the government is trying to pursue with this. I'm sure there's some sort of back deals they're trying to make and whatever. But, on the surface, this seems like a good thing to help the people. And now let's talk about the World Situation Report. So we had a little bit of a cliffhanger, kind of, sort of, on Monday's newscast. Although you guys that listen to this podcast, I gave you an update, if you recall. Remember, there was an Italian. This is part of what we call the Silent Circle. That's not actually their name, but it's a group of people, the Silent Circle, that run a lot of really big companies around the world. And so as we talk about restoring our planet, partnering with people like this could be at humanity's advantage if we can get them to cooperate, right? And to work towards the betterment of humanity, because let's face it, a lot of the companies now are doing really bad things to specifically hurt humanity. So we have to change things around. And getting people that are already kind of at the top running this stuff, getting them to switch perspectives is a good thing, right? And we had some holdouts with the Silent Circle. There were a group of Italian families run by this one main Italian, and I did give you some more information in Monday's podcast. So if you haven't heard that, you can check that out. And he basically considered himself to be on top now. He wanted to rule the world, which sounds absolutely ridiculous, but these people have such a big ego. And what we talked about on Monday's newscast, as well as the podcast, is that he was trying to get some information from different operatives to see, is Kim really who she says she is? Is she really carrying out these operations? Who's really in charge here? So he could make some decisions. Because the big threat for these people are that aliens are going to come back and kill them all if they don't follow this dark agenda, which I know sounds crazy because we have not been threatened with this dark agenda and aliens in the past, but this is what happens behind the scenes. Okay, this is very real. And so, like I said, these people a lot of times have this really big ego, like this particular Italian did, and decided that he was not, even though he had all the information and he knew everything had changed and we had switched from being in a dark age, we are now in a light age. None of that seemed to matter to him. And we got some more information today as to what actually happened. I told you on the podcast on Monday that he was taken out, which I could kind of get a feeling, even as we were recording the newscast earlier in the day, I'm like, there's no way this guy's going to stay around. I just had this feeling. I was like, I don't care what information he gets. I just know he's just going to do his own thing. And indeed, that is what happened. So what we found out is that even though he had all the correct information and, knew the truth, he decided to do his own thing. He started barking out orders of things to do in the Middle East and the war over there. He actually tried to do a ritual to contact some aliens known as the Abraxas. And we believe the Abraxas don't even exist anymore. They have been taken out. They're like, Kim compares them to kind of like humans. They kind of look like humans, or looked, I guess I should say, like humans, but really snotty, stuck up humans that, feel like, they deserve the world. Okay. And they did run things for a very long time on this planet, at least in conjunction with other beings that were here. So this particular Italian tried to do this ritual to contact the Abraxas. Obviously, he was headed in the wrong direction. He did not make smart life choices. He also had a command post in Milan, Italy. All of them were taken out. Okay. And that's a really big deal. And Kim went into more of a discussion and explanation on the newscast about why that's a big deal. Because in the order, there are certain things that you don't do. And taking out the top guy, or who they view as the top guy, normally would have major repercussions. You might have some aliens fly in and kill people, you would be taken out probably in one way or another. And nothing happened. Nothing happened to Kim. Kim's still here. By the way, Kim is not part of the order. She has never been part of the order. The exact opposite, okay? Kim is helping us transition into this light age, and she's trying to help us set things up so humanity can be successful. And she has to come face to face with these idiots. And I'm sorry, but that's, if you're just relying on your ego, I'm sorry. Like there's no, in this new earth, there is no room for that anymore. And so he was taken out. And this sent ripples through the order, okay? Through, the operatives, everybody. The families, everybody got word pretty quickly of what happened. And they had a lot of questions because they're like, no, that can't happen. Aliens would have come and whatever. But none of that happened. A bad guy was taken out and there was no repercussion for a bad guy taken out. Now, if this had happened in the dark age, then other things would have happened. Someone probably would have been taken out because you took out the head honcho for the dark side. But we're in a light age, okay? So darkness does not rule in a light age. And now what we have is very interesting. So for what seems to be forever, these people never gave Kim any credit. They never thought that she could do the stuff that she actually does. And now they have seen firsthand that from her dwelling, okay, she didn't have a whole team go or whatever. She was able to carry out this mission using the Alpha system, which we mentioned at the start of this podcast. And now they are petrified. They are petrified of her, which is a good place for the light side to be in. Because fear, unfortunately, is what these people know. They were fearful of these aliens coming and killing them all and eating them or doing whatever they do. And so now they're scared of Kim. They're more scared of Kim than anything else. And this is leading to a lot of victories for the light side. And I will let Kim tell you more about that.
By shockwave, I mean now they are petrified of me. because I could do something like that without consequence. And that is one thing that they actually understand. Now, this all basically took place Monday after the news.
Okay.
Next, as you know, no one, we talked about the phone call that had taken place where they sent all these different operatives to all these zones around the world, and no one ever came to the phone at the time of the recording on Monday.
Right.
Now, that is true, and no one ever came to the phone. Somebody came on and said that the call has been delayed. Well, this guy was in flight to Montenegro from Italy.
Okay.
So, and that was the last they ever heard. So the operatives were disgusted. You know, they took their time. They went to all these various locations. They were told there was going to be a lot of changes. And behind the scenes, those changes were supposed to be this guy was going to declare himself king of the world.
Of course.
And now he's in charge, you know, according to himself. He had plans to insert a person in front of him as his, I call them cannon fodder, even though their ego doesn't permit them to accept that. But they believe they're the chosen one of some sort or another. And, you know, they're going to be the face front for all the changes. But in reality, this guy did so many bad things behind the scenes, killed so many people. This guy would have just been the fall guy for all of that.
I see.
And he knows who he is. He knows I know him. So this should come as no surprise to him, but it probably is because there's an ego situation going on there. But after this guy's death, now even that guy is scared.
Yeah, I would be too.
That's right. It didn't take long for word to travel throughout all the circles, the inner circles, Jesuit order, I mean, you name it, all the way down the food chain that this had happened. And there were zero consequences on my side. No bad aliens came to take me out. Nothing happened. The watchers didn't answer the phone. You know, in this Monday afternoon was total chaos in the order. So yesterday was a time of talking. So the higher, you know, and I hate to say this, but there's higher ranking kind of operatives, and then there's the operatives, and then, you know, it's always been a chain of command.
Yeah.
And it didn't take long for the higher ranking operatives to find out that they're no longer with us.
Okay.
And they then arranged for a call, which they did show up for, with all of the operatives in all various locations yesterday afternoon around noon Eastern time, and explained to them what had happened. And pretty much by the end of the day yesterday, we had 100% cooperation of all operatives worldwide.
Wow.
Yes. Now, this is huge.
Yeah.
They were unsure a little bit about the way forward, how they were going to go forward. And so we're going to talk about that today. And that was kind of explained to them. There was a little briefing this morning, and I kind of explained what the plan is. So now I'm going to
sorry, Kim, did you actually meet with them? I know you said they met. Were you part of that conversation as well?
Well, I'm always part of conversations that are important. They just don't know I'm there.
Did they know you were there for this conversation?
Oh, they know I knew.
Okay.
Because they're listening to me as much as I'm listening to them, so they knew I knew.
Gotcha.
Now, before the call took place yesterday, there was quite a bit of an education that happened. This zone in particular has the key access to the key intelligence and military system. There are some others that do have access as well. Read-only mode, of course. And they kind of explained to these people who I am, what I do, all of these things. So the day before was a little bit too they were a little bit too hostile to have these types of conversations. They felt that they were disregarded. They were angry. No one came to the call. So the next day, things had, cooler heads prevailed. Everything kind of calmed down a little bit. The night before, they were talking zone violations, order violations, all kinds of different things. They were mad. Luckily, I wasn't involved in any of that. I was just like, oh dear, I told you this wasn't going to end well if no one came to the phone, and it didn't. But it could have been a lot worse, let's just say. So they now kind of have a different understanding of how I sit here in one place and do the things I do. Without traveling around the world, without sending, yes, we have our own army, we have air command, we have, boots on the ground, we have the legions, we have a lot of folks that have chipped in many, many ways over the last year or so. But by the same token, the intelligence and military system opened their eyes to a whole new world of what you could do and how it would change the face of how operations are run worldwide for security. There would be less risk for them, those types of things. Of course, there's always face-to-face meetings and stuff like that happen, but you don't have to pull in an entire army to take out a security threat.
Yeah.
And how it's actually done by one person, albeit, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, I set the system, to try to get some sleep. But by the same token, it's a lot of effort and a lot of work, and I'm kind of tired of doing it all by myself.
Sure.
So they could see how things could be better by midday yesterday. So there was a talk about how things could change and that there was another option. They were told about us and what we've been doing and how it always has been us anytime they've received any money, how the money was convoluted. There was orders that would come out and so on and so forth. Told them a little bit about these people that have disappeared and who they used to report to and how those threats are gone. And, confusion. There was also a lot of confusion with, for example, the Trump operatives, because, they've put this whole thing together and they know it's the only way forward. Really, they do. But they also were concerned about being forced to eat crow. I know.
And then don't lie to people.
I know.
It's like, yeah, you don't want to, face facts. Well, then don't lie. Sorry.
Well, the whole point of this is not to be right. Meaning, I'm not here doing this job to be right.
Yeah.
I'm not here to show somebody and put them on TV and say, look, this is a bad person. I mean, that's not what I'm here to do. We're here to restore Earth and humanity. That's what we're here to do. We're here to fix all that is broken. We are here to go forward. I don't have time to talk about what everybody did in the past. I've done a lot of stuff in the last couple of years that people would consider unsavory also, not from a moral standpoint, but from a, oh dear, got to do this again. And, I'm still doing it even as of this morning. I mean, in some cases, you don't attack me without consequences, and I'm sorry, you don't. So
right.
you had to go. You leave this planet. So as of this morning, so that gave us yesterday's talk, things that happened. So everybody actually kind of breathed a little bit of a sigh of relief, because there is a way forward. They can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I'm hoping these people move forward before Christmas, because it would be nice to give people some relief and some bonuses for Christmas,
Right.
Including all of us. I mean, that would be great. But I I'm waiting for a meeting that was probably started about 15 minutes ago as the time of this recording. So I don't have the end results of the where and the why yet. So,
and who's part of that meeting, Kim?
This meeting is between the higher ranking operatives and the operatives.
Okay.
So they're trying to come up with some kind of a interim administrative type structure, so that these people are used to rank and file. They're used to orders being passed down. They're used to those types of things. And in their world, there are people that they respect. So I'd say that some of their own, are trying to keep things from getting chaotic.
You can kind of think about what must be going on in their heads right now. These operatives are used to sending whole crews or teams of people to carry out various missions. And a lot of times people don't come back from these missions. And so sometimes it's hard to believe that Kim can be doing the stuff that she's doing. But I also think that there's probably something in their mind going, wow, now this kind of changes everything, because their job in a sense gets, I don't want to say more easier, but definitely less dangerous, right? And I'm sure these people have families and stuff too. They're not completely horrible people. They were doing not great things, but they were being paid to do it, and they probably didn't feel like there was a way out. And a lot of times it's kind of like a gun was being held to their head, and they were threatened a lot. So we have to kind of keep things in perspective. The other thing that Kim mentioned that is very good news for us is now we have achieved 100%. So our planet is now in a complete light system. And if you've been listening to the newscast for, I don't know, the last week or maybe even longer than that, we've been talking about our planet is getting this huge burst of source energy right now leading up to Christmas. And it's a beautiful thing. And we're getting kind of the percentages. Now it's at 87%. Now it's here. And so we are finally at 100% light system. So now it's time to talk about, okay, we've got a lot of stuff that is going in our favor. We've got the operatives wanting to work with us. We have the silent circle that's ready to move forward. We have families that are standing down. Yes, including the Rothschilds. So what do we do now? This is a prime moment for CARE to step in and start, a new portion of the restoration plan, because we have been, CARE has been, doing restoration on this planet for a long time. But as far as the things where humanity can get involved and we can see some real change in our everyday lives, this is the time that we can start doing this. And so Kim talks about the way forward. And one of the things that she said that I thought was really important to bring out is that our goal here is to prevent a one world government from ever happening again. And some of you may be thinking, happening again? I read in my Bible that was supposed to happen, but that hasn't happened. Yeah, it has. Yes, it has. And it has been a one world government for a very long time. They've been trying to bring it out more in the public now and make it more like commonplace. But trust me, a very small group of beings ran this place for a very long time, and governments were not really separate. So yes, that is a one world government, and this can never happen on our planet ever, ever again. So how do we do that? How do we change things? You're talking about a really big concept here. And Kim was recently asked a question. She was on a show the other night and was asked a question. And the question was, is it time for humanity to govern themselves? Now, I know a lot of us that are awake and aware, we kind of cringe at the idea of governments because we know how corrupt they have been in the past. But if we didn't have governments, what would we have? And is humanity ready to govern themselves? And honestly, if you've spent any amount of time in any kind of chat room online, you know that we are attacking each other constantly. And that is more representative of where humanity is. The people that join us and, watch our newscast or follow us on Telegram, they're not the normal people out there. They are not the average everyday person that's just going about living their life. These are awake and aware people that understand what what humanity has been going through. And so are we ready to govern ourselves? The data doesn't look that good. And so Kim explains what we can do in the interim. So this is not meant to be forever. This is the setup. But she talks about having an interim government and what that looks like. Take a listen.
So let's talk about real changes that can happen with 100% cooperative of the operatives.
Right.
Changes that we see, okay? These are your lawmakers. These are your law writers. Some of them are lawyers. Some of them are, in the finance sector. So we thought about this long and hard, and we had come up with something interim. So here's the interim thing. Okay, let's take the political sector. The political sector around the world currently has been selected, all officials, democracy or otherwise, are selected by the order.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're assigned security, quote unquote, or controllers or operatives, who then report to another faction of the order.
Yeah.
So the way to change this out is to think about after a period of about a year to 18 months, I figure. What about if our governments, because they're all corporations. I know that people say, oh, we need to nationalize this and that and that. It's all a corporation, period, end of story. Most of the money all runs through the private sector. It's a private sector treasury. It's a private sector everything. And what if we had a government that had a structure in place that was a cooperative, or for lack of a better term, an ESOP, which is an employee-owned corporation.
Right.
Interesting, isn't it?
So kind of play that out a little bit. What does that look like?
Okay. What that would look like is we already have boards of most major sectors of the government. We have a board, for lack of a better term, at the Pentagon.
Yeah.
Pentagon is also a private corporation. We have a board. We have an executive branch or a board of the government as well. And every government has an executive branch.
Mm-hmm.
That executive branch used to always report to the order, but now they won't. Now they don't. Interim wise, it'll be CARE. You have a board.
Okay.
Then you have shareholders. We'll call them Congress. And you have a Treasury Department. We also currently have a Fed, sort of, kind of, not really. So you take into account, all of these different sectors. You have a media programs, you have intelligence agencies, you have a lot of different people, and everybody's got a board.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it be Langley 5, and typically politicians and aides make money based on laws they passed, laws they don't pass, which, let's just face it, it's a selection. It's all a selection.
Mm-hmm.
And they make money based on pushing new technologies through, new drugs through, new different types of things. The things are endless, what they do in human health services and whatever that's called in your country. And everything is done under the table. It's hidden in accounts in Switzerland. And then Panama became the new Switzerland. That's why you had the Panama Papers, or it's hidden in an offshore account in the Caymans or somewhere else. But as an employee-owned corporation, it would actually be the operatives and the aides and their fellow actors that there's no need for corruption anymore because you're all being paid to make money. You're all being paid.
Well, how does the government make money? Like, I understand how corporations would make money. They're selling products and goods and services, but the government, what would the government be selling?
Well, everything is going to, well, military is going to be can sell their own military equipment. They can get involved in the manufacturing of planes, the safety of planes, the FAA, and a lot of other things that are supposed to make us secure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Perhaps in the future, airlines will pay a safety fee. They already do that anyway with the FAA and the memberships and this and that, and maybe that goes to the government. We also have a thing called spending tax that we want to implement at some point in the future. So there's money that gets made, that gets put into the governments to make sure everybody, but normally a lot of that big money, those multi-trillion dollar budgets, that all goes out the back door to corporates.
Right.
Now that's a whole nother sector of things. But the government actually can stand on its own 2 feet, and as cooperatives, they all share in the profitability of the government. Now, for a long, long time, the Federal Reserve sold dollars at 10% because all commodities worldwide are traded in dollars. So 10% of all the dollars in circulation, that's a lot of hundreds of billions of dollars, I'm telling you right now. So there's a lot of commodities. You can look this up, how much in commodities is traded on the commodities future market worldwide. And then you also had the black market too. Mm-hmm. And everybody has dollars. Everybody has treasury notes. Mm-hmm. So there's plenty of profitability to be made for the people that are running the corporation. Now, I know that's going to freak patriots out that are listening to this, but it's a corporation. It is not, it has a corporate structure, it is a pyramid structure, selections happen, that kind of thing. Your vote doesn't matter. It never has mattered, but maybe it will matter now when we don't have that kind of corruption, because now it's not corruption, it's the norm. Mm-hmm. Nobody has to hide money offshore anymore. And this is how your operatives get paid if you're a political operative. The same thing goes for the Treasury Department. Why aren't the people, not the crazy troll lady, don't get me started on her, but why aren't the operatives, the financial operatives that are running the Treasury Department, owning the Treasury Department? They own that part of the corporation. Why not? Mm-hmm. See what I'm saying? It's running that way anyway. They just had different owners.
What is it? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Finish. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I just had a question because I understand how the Treasury could work. I guess my hang up is with, and obviously I'm viewing this from the eyes of someone who lives in the United States, but for our Congress, like, I kind of don't want that, assuming we're keeping the current structure with the House of Representatives and the Senate, I never thought those people should stay there for a long period of time because things get corrupt. I always thought
this is also where that helps this process. So the reason why presidents get pushed into office and selected to go there is because they have a whole team, usually 1,000, if not more, operatives that go with them. And then they become worldwide power brokers.
Right.
The same thing for congressmen and women, House, Senate, whatever, representatives, they get a team as well. It's usually not as large as the one that goes into the White House, but they do have a large team as well.
Right.
And so, for example, you see on TV sometimes you'll see the president of the Banana Republic is meeting with the president of Orange Land. Mm-hmm. You've seen that, right? Like they shake hands, a state dinner sometimes, big deal. So sometimes they go to their house, sometimes they come over to your house, whatever, vice versa. And all of those things that they talk about and agree upon, be it a treaty, a ceasefire, whatever it is all agreed upon and signed, sealed by the operatives before the actor guy ever gets on TV or lady.
Right.
So that's all their work. Now, the same thing goes for the House of Representatives, the representatives and congressmen and women and so on and so forth, because, and that's part of the reason why they're, once they get in there, their butt cheeks mold to the seat by the time they get out. They usually get out because they're either very, very ill or, they retire for whatever reason. Things get too hot, too heated. So that being said, the things that happen behind the scenes amongst the aides. So the aides now have a long-term position, the operatives. Long-term position, longer the guy is in there, the more influential they become, within the lobbyist groups and the rank groups. And, you've got to talk to, John Doe. John Doe is your guy. If you need to get that passed, go talk to John Doe. And then John Doe charges sometimes 10%, 30%, whatever it is. And that's how he makes money.
Okay.
See?
Mm-hmm.
But now he'll make money anyway. He'll make that kind of money legally, legitimately anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no fear, and we can also come up with things like retirement packages. You serve 4 years, 8 years, whatever it is. We do term limits, just like they do for the president. And now we offer you a wonderful retirement package where there's a lot of money and that kind of thing. And then you move on with your life. You retire. Maybe you go do something else. Maybe you pick up a different congressman to back or whatever it is. But you see how it kind of takes corruption out of it? And it also takes corruption out of the selection of a president.
Yeah.
Because if you do it like this and everybody's getting paid anyway, then it doesn't matter who sits in the White House seat, does it? You're rotating terms, it. You're supposed to have 8 years, that's what everybody goes for so they can make the most amount of money. But now this whole power broker scene, yeah, you can make the deals and all of that, but all that's corporate money. And you are a shareholder, so you get paid off what John Doe does and Fred Smith does and everybody else, and you split it all up. It goes into a huge pool. There's no competition anymore. There's no trying to stab each other in the back for trying to get somebody in a different seat so you can make more money. Because everybody's making money and a lot of it. And it takes out things like, you're concerned about the Stock Act and all that kind of stuff and black market trading that goes on in politics worldwide, selling out citizens for a cut in vaccines and other things that they try to push into certain countries and almost all countries, recently. It takes out things like signing over your human health services to the World Health Organization. It takes all that out of the equation because there's no need. There's no kickback. I'm telling you right now, political operatives worldwide work for money and big money, millions of dollars money. No one signs anything unless there's a kickback or lately a promise of a big kickback for signing over the human health services over to the World Health Organization. But no money ever comes. No money ever comes. So do you see now kind of a bigger picture on how this could clean up politics?
So after the newscast, I was in Telegram because we do have some Telegram groups that you can join, which I'll tell you how to access that in just a little bit. And I wanted to see everybody's reaction. And there seems to be some mixed reaction as to if this interim plan will work. Now, one of the things that I mentioned to Kim on the news today is that it's sometimes hard for us to wrap our heads around all of this because unlike Kim, we're not really privy to understand the inner workings of how things really work. We are told that things work a certain way, and most of us believe that, but there's so much that happens behind the scene, and there's so much corruption that happens behind the scene. And so sometimes it's difficult to kind of wrap our heads around all of this. I know there's a lot of people that just want governments gone, and I'd be lying if I told you I wasn't in that camp because I'm just so tired of government. However, we are here to restore the planet. We are not necessarily here to, just upheave our whole society. How can that possibly be good for the average everyday human that has no idea what I'm talking about right now and has no idea the level of corruption? So having this type of interim government and working with people, albeit people that have done bad things in the past, they understand how things work. And so having them help us in this process could be a good thing. So don't necessarily get freaked out about the term government because trust me, a lot of things are going to change. This is just a way of getting us from point A to point B, which we all want to practice our sovereignty and essentially be able to govern ourselves. You know, we report back to God or source, and that's it. And that's how it's supposed to be. But again, how do we get there from here? Most people have no idea. The things that I'm telling you today, most people have no idea what I'm talking about. If you tried to share this with someone at the water cooler at work, they would look at you like you had 10 heads. Right? So I would love to hear what you guys have to say. I do watch the Telegram threads. I know Kim does too. And, you know, we're trying to get a gauge on what people feel. That also helps me in asking questions of Kim, you know, during the newscast and stuff. There's some mixed reactions regarding this. But again, we're not privy to all the information, you know, and Kim and her team are. And we do know that regardless of who is helping us, you know, in the operatives or, you know, other people that may be involved, like they're going to be on a very short leash. You can't get away with doing bad stuff anymore. Not only because we could see it through the alpha system, but it's just not going to be tolerated. We are in a light age right now. So there is, you know, there's not warnings. You will just go back to source. That's just how it is. So understand that's the implications. That's, you know, that would be a deal breaker if they decide, oh, we're going to continue to do chemtrails or we're going to, you know, continue to push these vaccines or whatever. No, I mean, there is a very tight leash here. And so at least, you know, that gives me some peace in mind in all of this. There is a structure already. Does it make sense to stick with that structure and help humanity transition into this next phase? It probably does. There's a lot that has to be decided, right? But that's the general concept. So again, we'd love to hear your thoughts on all of this. We encourage you guys to do your own research, keep an open mind, keep asking questions, think critically. And if you liked what you heard in today's podcast, then please share it with someone else that you care about. Of course, it's absolutely free, so why not, right? And if you want more access to all of the content we produce, you can go to unitednetwork.tv. You can get on-demand access to all of our newscasts, the complete world situation report, which today, that was a long one. I think in total, usually our news section is about 30 to 40 minutes, and the entire newscast today was like 2 hours and 30 minutes. So Kim talked a lot about a lot of different things. Obviously, I can't include all of that in our podcast episode. So if you want all of that, head on over to unitednetwork.tv. And also, if you would like to connect with us, I mentioned our Telegram channels. The best way to find those is by going to this link. It's unitednetwork.news/connect. And it's got all of our links to all of our resources there. I will include that link in the episode description. So I know it was a very interesting newscast today, and as a result, World Situation Report, an interesting podcast episode as well. So hope you enjoyed it. This is The Rundown. I'm Sunny Galt for United Network News, signing off.